ultimately, I think teachers just need a pathway that they can follow with the support of a community that also strengthens us as a community of teachers. I want the world to see how strong teachers are. And sometimes you have to show it in a different way that more people understand.
I'm Lisa Harding, ex-EdTech CEO turned certified teacher career coach. It wasn't all that long ago that I was recruiting, interviewing, and hiring teachers for roles in corporate America. Teachers that ended up being some of my all-time best employees. Fast forward through my own career transition, where I left my role as CEO to become a stay-at-home mom, I now work with and empower teachers to transform their lives by turning their once distant career dreams into realities. In this podcast, I give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're a burnt-out teacher or simply need a change and you're looking to create a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Classroom. Today, we're diving into an especially exciting episode packed with inspiration and practical advice. First, we'll hear an incredible career transition story from a teacher turned entrepreneur. Then, we'll explore actionable tips for staying healthy as a busy teacher, especially if you're navigating the challenges of a career change. Joining me today is Erin Jacobs, a former middle and high school band teacher turned health and wellness coach. After dedicating 15 years to teaching, Erin reached a turning point that led him to discover the transformative power of health and fitness. Not only did this journey change his life, but it also inspired his students and colleagues. Now, Erin is passionate about helping teachers reclaim their health and strength, not just for their personal well-being, but also to lead by example in their communities. We connected through the Life After Teaching Facebook group, an incredible community for teachers exploring new careers. If you're not already part of this group, I'll share the link in the show notes. But for now, let's welcome Erin to the show.
Hello, Lisa. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Erin. So glad to have you here. I have some great questions to get into the heart of the conversation, but I love to start with a fun question. And I'm going to make it easy on you today because I made this a would you rather, which was inspired by my 5-year-old who loves to ask me would you rather every day on the way home from school. So, Erin, if you're on vacation, maybe with friends, family, a loved one, would you rather be spending your days lounging on a beach and enjoying the beach scenes, or going to a big city and exploring a new city?
Big city all day, 100%. I am and I think you'll see as we go through our conversation here, I'm a pretty high energy person most of the time, and so the idea of lounging around on a beach has never really appealed to me. Also, I burn really easily, so it's just not my place.
So it's not practical and it's not your style. I think I would pick the big city too, but being in Florida, I'm always like, is that just because I have access to beaches? But I love exploring a new city. Well, let's dial into the heart of today's episode, Erin. I'm really excited to hear about the health and wellness tips, but I think we should start off just talking about how you got into this space and also your own career transition. So if you could just briefly share about your teaching career and then the turning points that made you realize that it might be time to explore life beyond the classroom.
Got it. Yeah. So I was a band director for 13 of those years were in the public schools. I started at actually Ankeny Middle School in Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is one of the bigger school districts in Ohio. And I ran a middle school program, grades 6 to 8. And I really enjoyed it there. And then they started to actually have some trouble passing levies. And so I was looking in the area, exploring some other options. And I landed a master's assistantship, getting my master's degree in conducting at Wright State University. And then I was able to be able to move back home to Avon, Ohio, right on Lake Erie. So we're getting a lot more snow than you are down there. I know you mentioned to me before we started that it was very cold down in Florida. That's a very relative term. So I moved back to Avon, Ohio. I live in a nearby town, actually, and I ran the band program that I was a part of when I was in high school and helped transform it. They have a brand new performing arts center there that the orchestra and choir band programs are all thriving there now, even through COVID. And I did that for 10 years. And partway through my career, especially teaching at a school there, it's very like our football program is extremely good. It's a huge draw. And part of my motive for starting in fitness was partially like we were having some recruiting battles and like getting kids to want to stay in music because football for a lot of kids is a big image thing for young men. And so I said, all right, well, you know what? What if the band guy got in shape and like was the most healthy person on the staff? And so I just kind of started trying different things. A lot of things did not stick. A lot of things did not go well. It was very similar to how I think a lot of people start health journeys was like trying to go all out in one thing that seems like it's very extreme but beneficial to some people, and then like not having it work out, something you can't sustain. Um, and then the toughest part was COVID. COVID hit, and especially for musicians, there was a lot of concern about the aerosols and things coming out of instruments, especially in the band world. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and like the aerosols produced by instruments and the particles from COVID transferring from one person to another early on, and so band classes were either outdoors, which was really challenging with middle school kids, or they weren't happening in person at all, or very, very restricted. And so it was a big downer in my life because I thought that all the work I'd done to build the program back up, even beyond what it was when I was a student, I thought that was all going out the window. So I was eating my feelings. And I even joke about this now. Like there were big blocks of cheese that I used to eat. Like if you've ever been to a Greek restaurant, saganaki, they say opa and they like light the cheese on fire. I was having big blocks of cheese like that pretty much every day during COVID. I had no idea what I was doing to my health. I was trying to work out and everything. And I was eating my feelings at the time. But then a local gym opened back up in that summer after we'd done the quarantine classroom for like 3 months, March to June 2020. And I took on nutrition training. I invested like as much as I possibly could in this gym for myself. And in 3 months, I dropped over 40 pounds
Wow.
and I got the best shape of my life. And I went back and the kids saw me on, Zoom meetings and calls, and they were watching what I looked like there. And then they didn't see me for a couple months on summer break. And we got back to our whatever marching band looked like in those days. And they were like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, I just actually learned what to do. And I just finally stuck to it. And so, and then from the power of that, I just haven't stopped in 5.5 years. And in terms of me getting to this point where I finally said I didn't want to stay in the classroom anymore, this is where it takes a very dark turn. I was physically healthy. I was eating a great diet. Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, don't do any of that. Never smoke, never vape, like none of that. And yet my mental health was at an absolute breaking point last year during the school year of 2023. I am very fortunate and thankful to still be here. And it was such a dark place. And I think it was because I finally knew that no matter what happened, I was being called to serve more people in a broader sense than just the kids in my classroom. And I felt stuck and didn't know the next step. And I didn't know how to proceed. I didn't know what it would look like. But I'd known that I've been coaching fitness part-time in person, developed that skill on my own, gotten some certifications, helped other people in that way. And I knew that it was something along those lines, and I just needed a path forward. So I actually came across my first mentor. His name is Chris Rodak. If you look up Rising Father on Instagram, he's fantastic. He's actually another former teacher. He's another former band director. And
Oh,
so Chris
wow.
and I worked together for a number of months. He taught me the ins and outs of trying to create impactful content and trying messaging and what it's like to run an online coaching company for people. And he runs his demographic is very specific to dads. And so I was like, okay, well, what if we had this same level of community nationwide for teachers? And so over the course of the last few months, really got my gears turning, and I finally said, all right, this is what it's going to be. And so, especially because of the strains of the profession, and even I was going through them, and I was already pretty physically healthy, we need to make ourselves as strong as possible as a community of teachers. Whether you are seeking to leave the profession, you need to become a different person. If you want to be an amazing teacher and stay in the classroom, you need to become a stronger version of yourself. And how you treat yourself and respect yourself is how other people will do the same. And there's no better way to change that through your habits and becoming a different person through your habits. So I think that pretty much sums up the journey thus far.
Yeah, that's an incredible journey. And you said a lot of things that I think are really resonating with our audience. And, it's not fun to talk about it, but
Mhm.
mental health, I mean, I feel like when I work with teachers, that's one of the first things we talk about. Like whether it's mindset or mental health or just how it all is kind of compounding with burnout And that's one of the first things that goes. And a lot of people, we're we're brought up or society really recognizes physical health, but the mental health aspect in this type of job, it's so mental. People are so invested. There's so many emotions in teaching, that I don't think that you're alone in having those struggles. And no, and people can have them on all ranges. There's a huge range of how mental health impacts us. So thank you for sharing that, because I feel like a lot of people feel alone in that part of the journey. And so, and I know how personal that is. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, I know a lot of times, people think about like, oh, what's next or how am I going to balance both? But you kind of touched on that you were doing this kind of on the side with teaching. And
Mhm.
especially during like the COVID world when teaching was like all these new demands were coming, you were learning, like, how did you fit that in? Like, what did that actually look like on how you had balance, or did you not have balance, or how did you do that?
So this is where I think people are going to get an insight into my coaching, my personality. I don't believe in balance. And a lot of people are, and I get why people like in your Facebook group, understandably, are seeking balance for their mental health. I don't believe in balance. Okay. What I do believe in is having aspirations and goals that motivate you not to desire balance. And the other thing, as someone who, and this is probably not going to come through in this podcast, certainly it doesn't come through my personality. I'm actually very introverted naturally. And I would tell kids this a lot, because, and this kind of feeds into my coaching philosophy too, and what teachers need to do, I think, to progress themselves. Um, you have to put yourself in the most uncomfortable situation in an area where you know you need to grow. Like whatever the thing that is that scares you the most, you need to go try to tackle it. Now you can do that in a smart way. Like for me, I knew it was my health and my fitness early on. And so I just went to constantly tackle it and tackle it and tackle it. And there was nothing balanced about that. But if you have something that's a higher calling, you won't desire balance. But as someone who's also an introvert, I get why people are reaching for balance, because classrooms with the myriad of kids being distractible, the discipline issues on the rise, parents not taking as much of a hands-on approach as we need them to have kids behave, you're looking for peacefulness and tranquility in your life, and you want, it's social battery overload is I think what people are speaking to when they really say balance. So for me now, like I make right now, I'm just starting out. I make much less money than I did when I was teaching, and I'm okay with that because I planned for it. And yeah, I think you have questions around that later. But I probably work more hours on average in a week now than I did when I was teaching, especially high school band with the demand of schedules there. We had a competitive band, and yet throughout this whole process, I've worked more hours in a week on average, and yet I'm less tired. I'm more energetic. I'm happier. My mood is better. And so I think balance is not really what people are seeking when they say they're seeking that as teachers. What they really want is their social battery to recharge and to be able to feel like they're serving a greater calling, which is why we got into the profession in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, that term, everyone says, I want better work-life balance. But when you ask them, or when I'm working with someone and I say, what does that mean to you? That just means like it's the end result, which is better mental health, happy, you're a happier person, you're a healthier person, your mental health is better, you like love waking up every day. And so I think we're like, how do I achieve that? And then we wrap this term around that, and that term is balance. But to your point, like it, it's not the balance, it's just getting you to a place where you're happy and thriving and all of those things. And we don't know what that is like until you find it and you're in the groove. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. And I think that probably resonates with a lot of people, because I
Mhm.
think the question a lot, no matter what it is like, what does that mean to you? And then how do you find that? Um, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. I love interviewing entrepreneurs. Interviewed other entrepreneurs, and when I talk to people about it, the number one concern is, they say most businesses aren't profitable for the first 5 years, and that's to be expected. Until you're ramped up, you may not be getting that you're not getting that steady paycheck when you start. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
And that's scary. leaving a stable job, benefits, this and that, to going to that. How did you approach that? And what advice would you have for someone that's concerned about that aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways you can approach it, and my initial thought was I would take just like a job that's like dream adjacent when I was first starting out. But then I just ran the numbers and realized I could just go right to the dream and just try to make it work. But before that, it was years of a process of obviously working on myself to become that person, developing those skills on the side and upskilling on the side towards the dream, right? To being able to help as many people as possible with their health and fitness. There's never a time where you run into me and talk to me where I'm not going to be excited to help you tweak your diet, or like you're going to say, well, I ate this for lunch. How can I make this better? I'm not going to be a complete nerd and go, well, you could do this, 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 and this. And so it's about discovering that first of all. And then second of all, again, when it comes to balance, we're not approaching it from a balance standpoint. Like it's something that I'm excited to do when I'm not at school. And I would obviously, after a while, I had kids asking me about it, and me helping them as well. And so I upskilled for years. So I train part-time, I coach part-time rather at a local CrossFit gym. And I've been doing that for a number of years. I have my L2 certificate. I'm actually looking maybe down the road, possibly going for the L3, which is definitely a lot more intensive. But it really taught me a lot. CrossFit is so good about teaching movement patterns and healthy movement standards. People think that like you're going to get injured doing CrossFit. They don't know. Like they don't know. If you have a well-programmed CrossFit gym, it's the best place to learn how to do advanced anything in fitness. And it created a really good foundation for me. So I learned the basics myself for many years because I started training in 2020. Learned those basics myself, tried to master them as best I could. We're all still a work in progress. And then a couple years in, I said, all right, let me learn how to coach. And so that was in 2022. So I'd been coaching for a number of years before that. And then I decided to take on a nutrition coaching course as well to make sure that I was, again, continuing to upskill in my passion. So if you focus on upskilling in your passion, it's going to light you up. Yeah, I voluntarily like that. When I did my nutrition certificate, there's the books right there behind me, actually. Um, I spent basically most of the month of June after school was out working on my own 3 to 4 hours a day in the morning, just enjoying the heck out of learning everything I was learning. And so if you can find something like that, it will take you longer to build it. But if you are upskilling on the side in an area that is not just this is what the job market demands, but it's something that lights you up, I think you're going to find that fulfillment.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a core characteristic of entrepreneurs. And I know everyone listening to this today is, we have people listening that are interested in entrepreneurship, but then I think we have a lot of audience members that are just interested in the health and wellness tips we're about to get into. So if you're out there thinking like that doesn't sound like me, I think that's like an entrepreneurial person. Like I'm the same way. Like I would do anything. Like once I knew, like I had always helped teachers in my career. And being the CEO of a teacher professional development company, I mean, you have to be an entrepreneur if you want that type of position too. So when I started doing it on my own and realizing, I just love helping teachers. I don't care what capacity that is, whether it's helping them in their classroom or helping them leave the classroom. Like that was my fire. And I was going after that, like no matter what. And when I work with teachers and they're like, I don't know if I want to be, I kind of want to work for myself. Like, I don't know if I do or if I want to work for someone else. I'm like, if you have a fire burning in you, not everyone has that. And that's usually like a key that maybe you should give that a try. And if you don't have that fire, then that's okay too. Like you might have the passion for doing something else. So entrepreneurship is just such an interesting kind of world. And I think if a teacher has a fire, they definitely have the skills to make it happen. And kudos to you for doing that because I know it's not easy. Um, so maybe we can jump into some of those health and wellness tips for those of
Absolutely.
us in the audience that are excited to hear about that. And I feel like with teachers in particular, it's just such a demanding career. With the packed schedules, quick lunch breaks that sometimes, kind of hinders our thinking of how we're going to eat healthy during the day. There's sometimes barely time to go to the bathroom. I mean, just so much stress in that job. And then our audience, on top of all of that, is going through a career transition. So maybe you can talk about advice for staying healthy specifically as a teacher. Today's episode is sponsored by the Teacher Career Transition Academy. Are you eager to explore new possibilities but find yourself unsure of where to start? Look no further than our Teacher Career Directory. Available for free, this comprehensive resource features over 200 careers tailored for transitioning teachers. Dive into detailed insights, including average U.S. salary ranges, occupational outlooks, and even a personalized skills and interests inventory. Download now at teachercareertransitionacademy.com/directory. I'll also drop the link in the show notes of this episode. So don't miss out and claim your free directory today at teachercareertransitionacademy.com/directory. Maybe you can talk about advice for staying healthy specifically as a teacher.
Okay. Well, I think right off the top, the main thing I'm fighting this on the internet, not just for teachers, but for everybody. There's so much attention given to the extremes in the fitness space. Right. And this is actually a lot of my content the last couple weeks starting out the year has been geared toward this because you're either seeing like the rail skinny, like runway model physique all the way up to something that's like a really gigantic bodybuilder. Neither of these things are healthy. And people would also be surprised to learn that in order to be a professional athlete in a lot of ways, the amount that you put of stress you put in your body is also not healthy. So the way I measure health is a lot different, I think. And the standards that I want to create, that I'm creating for teachers, because as teachers, we love some standards. So that's part of the program, actually, when we get to that. How you measure health is not so much external as it is internal, right? It's the mental health, it's how you feel, it's your energy levels, it's what you can do that I'm more interested in terms of measuring health, not what you look like. And so fitness can seem intimidating because of what the internet pushes to you, the algorithm pushes to you, whether that's diet. My main opposition is the people that push carnivore diet on people. I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of it. I think it's borderline dangerous the way they push diets like that onto people. And it's essentially, there's a lot of advice on the internet that is intended for a small audience in which it can work for a small number of people, but it is pushed out content wise as if it is meant for everybody. And I have a real problem with people that do that. And if you have a specialized method that works for a narrow group of people, and some people do succeed on that diet in reversing some chronic health issues, but it's not for most people. And I think it's a very highly dangerous diet with just a lack of nutrients in some cases, and how hard it is to be healthy on that diet. And I won't get into the details. We don't need to get into the science and all that behind it. I just know that like I don't live at the extremes with that. Sometimes not living at the extremes means it's harder to get attention on what really is going to benefit the most people, because that's just how the internet seems to work. So that's my general advice is like, don't follow an extreme diet, especially and you don't need to attach your diet to something that has a catchy name, right? Like my diet, I take some of the best parts of the carnivore diet, right? High protein, right? Good quality protein. And I take some of the best parts of the vegan diet and I marry those two things. So none of them actually like me. Neither of those camps are big fans of mine because I'm pulling from the best parts of both of them. So if your diet has too much of a you don't need to attach a label to your diet is a big thing. Second thing is administrators need to help us out. We need to get teachers to be better hydrated. So many people end up snacking and just binging on food after school's over, and this used to be me, because you're dehydrated. And a lot of times you're getting your hunger signals mixed up by being dehydrated. And the reason a lot of teachers are dehydrated is because we don't feel like we can drink enough water because we don't get bathroom breaks. So our administrators need to help us out on that front. I think if anybody knows Principal Lamb, he's a pretty big account. I really like his content. He's a very good advocate for teachers. And I think he's even talked about this piece a little bit here where he's like, he just teaches, he does his entire day as an administrator on a cart, just goes around and just like checks in with teachers all the time. So like the ability for those teachers in his building to get a bathroom break is it's just more healthy, right? It's either teachers are hydrating, but they're getting more bladder infections than the average worker, or they're dehydrated, which is causing us to feel like we're hungrier later in the day and then binging on food to recoup from the stress of the day and the dehydration. So
I
main
never
thing
actually
is,
thought
yeah.
about that. I mean, I think everyone knows how important it is. I mean, I'm here, like I have water bottles all around the house. I'm drinking them all day. I have the luxury of using my bathroom whenever I want. But, as teachers, we don't think about like since we can't do that, then what's the effect? It's not drinking as much as school, and then you have limited hours to like hit your water goals that you
Yeah.
have.
It's the only job out there like that I can think of.
Yeah,
I mean, Obviously, yes, like some medical professionals, like you're on call, you're in surgery where you can't necessarily take a break like that. But for the most part, teachers are the ones that bear that on a day-to-day basis, and it's really not healthy in either extreme.
Yeah, there's really not that many careers that are like teaching. I mean,
No,
none.
no.
And I think that's one thing people are so surprised when they start working at a company or anywhere else. They're just like, is this really like people get to do this? This is how you live? Like you can go to a dentist appointment at lunch break. Like you can just get up from your desk and walk around and talk to people whenever you want. It's like, yeah, that's how a lot of people live.
Yeah.
Um, what about any tips for like packing lunches and taking them to school or like
Mm.
anything that makes like that practical aspect easier?
Yes, if you feel like you're pressed for time, I know it's very tempting to follow all of these wonderful accounts on Instagram that make this is my meal prep for the week. And then they have these like perfectly, dude, the things that drive me nuts, man. If you've seen the really expensive like fridge restocks on
Oh
TikTok and
yeah. I mean,
Instagram,
that's not,
dude, like it's just so overdone and so elaborate. And as much as I don't like, the people that are like, here's what I eat in a day to be like, the primal guy, yada yada, and they put like the food on the cutting board or whatever, there is something to that. If you notice the people that eat off those cutting boards, it's just chicken. Here's a fruit. Here's a vegetable. Here's some avocado. It's just like one ingredient. So I would say stop trying to feel like you have to have an elaborate meal prep to eat healthy. I eat a lot of single ingredient foods. It's so easy to prepare. And I probably eat even simpler and easier than I did when I was teaching, actually, which allows me to put more time into helping my current clients, creating content, doing messaging and like reaching out to people and doing the things that I need to do. And so the way I eat now is very simple. And I only prep ingredients on the weekend. I don't prep elaborate meals with like, sauces and like, five different components. And then like it's just people overcomplicate it. It's like get the things that you know are going to help you be healthy. Load up on your fruits and vegetables, load up on some healthy proteins, just put them together in an old combination or just have them by himself. If you just get comfortable with that most of the time, you're going to be healthier. You're going to naturally cut out a bunch of junk calories by doing that. And it's a heck of a lot simpler. It takes away that decision fatigue
yeah.
and or the need for like, oh wow, look at how beautiful that meal prep is. Like it's too much time and it's unnecessary to be healthy.
Yeah, and I think just I like how you position it. That's something, I'm always working on. I'm not an expert, but I'm working on that as well. My focus is like I plan everything around the protein because I'm trying to like have so much protein a day. And so for that, it's like, well, just I gotta eat this chicken breast. Like that's fine. Just put that in there, throw some cottage cheese. I do like, and
Mhm.
I honestly will eat the same thing like for lunch for a week, for 2 weeks, because I'm like, okay, I like it. It's easy. And I like what you said because I'm all about like, I don't want to spend my free time like meal prepping and then watching these accounts, figuring out cool recipes. Like, if I know I like chicken on arugula with cottage cheese, like, that's what I'm going to eat. Why not? I'm just going to eat it and I don't have to think about it. And then every 2 weeks I get bored and then I come up with the next round. But that's just me. And like you said, something different works for everyone. But I like the concept of keep it simple. Um,
Most people actually tend to eat the same 5 to 7 meals throughout their actually like lifetime too. And so
oh, that's
part of my
interesting.
process is, as I'm working with someone one to one for the first time in my program, they're just sending me pictures of what they're eating. Like you're not putting things in a food scale yet, you're not tracking calories. I'm like, okay, well, this is what you naturally gravitate towards. This tells me a lot. This is what you like. We can probably still eat something like this and be more supportive of your goals that could save you time and be easier to prepare. And another thing that I try to do too, especially when you eat that kind of single ingredient focused sort of diet, is it saves you some money too.
Yep. I mean, hey, all of that is good. So that's yep. I mean, hey, maybe I'll start texting you pictures of my food and you can give me pointers too. Okay. All right. So when we think about staying healthy, we do think about like eating habits, which we kind of touched on, but then we also think, I mean, there's lots of things, but the other thing, the big thing I think is like exercise and eating are kind of the two main levers that most people think about. So, what about for exercising? How can you go about fitting that in when you're so busy, or how do you overcome maybe the mental challenge of like I'm too busy to do that and just get it started?
Okay, this is where I go into coach mode, and this is where like I am a little bit more just blunt. So you make time for the things that matter to you the most. If it really matters enough to you, you will stop doing all the schoolwork that you're doing and you'll find ways to clear it out. I stopped giving as many playing tests. I stopped spending as much time grading playing tests as a band director. I found more efficient ways to grade playing tests to make sure that I was taking care of myself because I knew that ultimately less is more, right? And it's very easy to get caught up on trying to do as much as possible for students and falling on the sword. But if you're not doing enough for yourself, that's going to run out eventually. So you make time for the things that matter to you the most. And where that fits into your day is going to be different. And you don't need to work out 7 days a week for hours on end to be successful. When I first started working out while going through my teaching journey at the same time, I was only going to the gym. I think I was going 4 times a week, working out 4 times a week, maybe three on some weeks. But at the same time, like it was something that I prioritized. My busiest season as a competitive high school marching band director, I actually hit some personal records with a few of my lifts during that season.
Hmm.
During marching band seasons, I did. So it's really about prioritizing what's important to you. And so finding ways, and this is to the individual. So part of what I do is absolutely yes, like helping you schedule out when you should do things because that is different for everybody. Everyone's school is scheduled differently. Everyone's teaching schedule is different. So that's a one-to-one. We can work that out, but it is possible for everyone to fit it in, but you have to prioritize it for yourself. And it's just otherwise it's just never going to happen, right? I'm not all about excuses. I'm about finding solutions on that. Which
Yeah, and I
brings me
think
to
everyone like you probably it seems like just the way you're talking, it seems like you might agree with this is that like exercise is different for everyone. It's like some people like to go to the gym and do it there. Other people might be able to find ways to do it at home or outside or like I feel like there's opportunity for it everywhere. And sometimes I like to things as like gateway, like maybe there's a gateway where you start with just something easy at home and then the next thing you know, fast forward a year, you're in the gym because you're more confident and you are now more drawn to that. Have you seen anything like that where it kind of just starts real little and then expands?
100%. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to start with I'm starting off very small. I want to just work with a few people one to one to make sure that we're helping people find some real awesome results. And it's been interesting that I've taken somebody who started with me, she started only using resistance bands at home. She tried CrossFit before with her sister actually goes to my gym and works out with me and she's actually like a nutrition professional herself. And so she had a really bad experience trying CrossFit for the first time. So she started with me. We did resistance bands only. I bought her the resistance bands. I was like, here's what you can do. Here you go. Um, and now, like, she realized, oh, I have a gym at my school that has rowers, that has all this equipment. And now she's like excited to try to use some of that stuff. And we're switching her off that. And she's like, her confidence is just through the roof. So we definitely, as much as I'm a little bit like a no excuses kind of person, I do like to do what teachers do for their students, which is you have to meet people where they're at. So as long as you're taking action with where you're at, you're making great progress. Most of the people that I work with are doing more at-home style workouts, but for the people that are going into gyms and stuff, like I've got ways to push them too. And so you just meet people where they are at and then just push them to whatever that next step is. And to create those mastery experiences where you create those little mini wins over and over again.
Yep. And I mean, you're speaking my language, but in a different arena, working with teachers, making career transitions, we focus on those little wins too, because it's, it's a long journey. Same with health and wellness, and health and wellness journey never ends, but a career journey never really ends either until you hit retirement. And even then, I have a lot of retired teachers that I work with, and they're looking for their next chapter. So it's like, it's definitely important, I think, no matter what aspect of life, if it's an improvement area, those little wins are so important to see what you're doing because they're the stepping stone to the next win. And I think in consistency, same with career transitioning. You have to stay at it. You can't just do it every once in a while. It's a focus and you're working towards a goal. Now, kind of bringing this all together, talking about your entrepreneurship journey, talking about these tips, you've kind of alluded to a program that you're building, and it sounds like it might be a community just for teachers. So I'd be curious to hear a little bit about what that is.
So yes, later this year, and I don't have a launch date on this yet because I want to make sure when I launch, I do it the right way. Um, but I want to launch FIT, the Fitness Initiative for Teachers, because it's the acronym is FIT, and it's
I
got
love
teachers in it.
that.
So yeah, so right now, yeah, I'm just working with people one to one to coach them up and guiding them through the process that everybody will go through. There obviously will be different starting points for everybody, but ultimately, I think teachers just need a pathway that they can follow with the support of a community that also strengthens us as a community of teachers. I want the world to see how strong teachers are. And sometimes you have to show it in a different way that more people understand. And I can tell you, as the person who taught band for a number of years at a very, very strong football school, I had a very good relationship with the head football coach. And he would make comments to me sometimes. He's like, oh, yeah, Aaron, I got to do this and that. I got to get back on this. I got to do that. Because I definitely, in terms of my fitness, right there with the football coaches and probably beyond some of them. And that's not like a brag thing. It's just more like a, setting the example kind of thing, slash showing the strength of people in the profession. Because I see a lot of, I think we all know there's a lot of structural elements to America's education system that need a lot of help. So if we can be stronger as people within that system and show that strength and show that we are self-respecting ourselves at the highest level, I think two things can happen. One, we can have a much bigger leverage and influence on policy. And two, we'll help the next generation of kids fight back against the obesity epidemic because it's not gotten any better. And if the people in front of them are the best role models for kids, we can turn the tide against that and not be so dependent on such an expensive and messed up healthcare system that we have in America. And we can use simple, yes, challenging, but simple, sustainable habits to not go broke trying to spend all the money that we do on healthcare for most of healthcare expenditures being largely non-communicable diseases that can be mitigated through lifestyle choices.
Well, that's really exciting. I love the acronym FIT, Fitness Initiative for Teachers, and we can't wait for when it comes out.
Mhm.
I know
I
that
wanted to
I
call it
will.
the Fitness Institute for Teachers, but I don't have a physical building that we're all going to meet at. So I figured Institute sounds cooler, but I went with initiative.
I love
Uh,
I love the initiative, and I feel like
yeah.
that's kind of like a move forward word, and that's
Yes.
something you need in order to do this. So I don't know. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Right now, Aaron, we do have your Instagram profile. I'm going to link that in the show notes, and then I know our listeners will find these episodes at all different times. So if you're listening, you may be able to join the FIT right now when it comes out. I will go back to the show notes and link that as well. So whether you're listening to this when we first launched this episode or you're a year out and it's already available, we'll put all of the links that you would need, and we'll keep that updated for you. Um, my final question for you today, Aaron, for teachers who feel stuck, whether it's their health journey, their career, or both, what advice or encouragement would you share to help them just take that first step forward?
Think bigger and dream like you're a crazy person. Because like the idea that one band director from Ohio can change the entire course of public education seems crazy to a lot of people. But even if I fall short of whatever people think that goal is, think about the amount of good you can add to the world. Think about the amount of positive you can add to the world. Think about how much better your life can be if you think way outside the box and think a lot bigger. I'm a part of a couple of business masterminds that teach you just that. And I'm around some very, very highly achieving people. And I just like every day, every week we have these meetings and just being around, saying what these people are accomplishing, what they're doing. I'm blown away and I'm humbled to be in these rooms. And I think teachers need to be represented in those spaces. But in order to do that, we need to be able to think and dream a lot bigger. And it's hard to do that. But I did it when I pulled myself out of the depths of, you know, the worst mental health I've been in my entire life about a year and 3 months ago to now. So don't be afraid to think and dream bigger. That path is different for everybody. I think actually Alex Hormozy had a great post. He said, yes, it's awesome to go chase your dreams and go for it, but how you do that's different for everybody. It's not just up and quit your job right away and just go for it because that doesn't work for everybody. It took like from the first year that I taught high school band, I realized holy crap, I can't do this for 30 years. So I immediately humbled my lifestyle. And as my income went up, I stashed more and more money away and invested outside of the state retirement system. And as my income continued to go up over the years, as I got up in the steps or whatever, I tried to decrease my spending as much as possible because ultimately I realized how I valued how my time is spent and the good that I can put into the world mattered more than, the next nice thing I could buy for myself.
Wow, that is pretty great advice to close out a pretty great episode. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode of Beyond the Classroom, it's been such an inspiring conversation filled with practical advice and encouragement for teachers navigating both career changes and wellness journeys. Aaron, thank you again for sharing your story and expertise with us today. We'll be sure to include all of the ways our listeners can connect with you in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other teachers just like you find this valuable content. Remember, friends, whether you're exploring a new career or working on improving your well being, the journey is just the beginning. Embrace the adventure.